Friends, in today's episode, we will uncover some of the most terrifying executions from around the world, punishments so dreadful that many criminals would rather take their own lives than face them. These aren't the ordinary methods like hanging or lethal injection. These are executions so brutal, so haunting, that even imagining them can send shivers down the spine of ordinary people. And yet, with the government's approval, these punishments are carried out publicly, in front of ordinary citizens, forcing them to witness the horrifying fate of convicted criminals. The message is clear. No matter how violent or ruthless a criminal may be, the fear of such a gruesome death can make even the boldest offender hesitate before committing another crime. Yes, death is inevitable for all of us, but when death comes in such a cruel and unimaginable way, it makes even the harshest punishment feel unbearable. I promise, as you hear about these executions, your very soul will tremble. Let's begin.
You all already know that North Korea is one of the most secretive and merciless nations on Earth. Hidden behind its borders are some of the world's most brutal executions. The man you're seeing on your screen right now is Couchwall 1. Once a resident of North Korea, he was arrested for a crime. But in a daring escape, he managed to flee the prison and eventually found refuge in South Korea. Later, in an interview with a journalist, Won revealed something chilling. He claimed that during his imprisonment, he personally witnessed Kim Jong-un himself, overseeing the execution of 2 prisoners. According to Won, when North Korea carries out a death sentence, the criminal is dragged into an open field, where thousands of people are gathered to watch. What happens next is so terrifying that even hardened criminals tremble with fear. First, the prisoner's hands are tied tightly behind a wooden post. Then, a piece of jagged iron is forced into his mouth, tearing through flesh and drawing blood. And finally, the executioners unleash a rain of bullets into his body until he collapses lifeless to the ground. But the horror doesn't end there. Won revealed that in some cases, the condemned man's entire family, his parents, wife, and even his children are brought to the same field. In front of the horrified crowd, they too are executed. In the same merciless fashion, imagine the terror of watching not just your own death, but the extermination of your entire bloodline. Shocking, isn't it? As brutal as some countries may be with their legal systems, none match the cruelty and infamous reputation of North Korea. Death Van China. Most of you are familiar with executions like hanging, the electric chair, or lethal injection. But have you ever heard of something called the death van? This is not fiction, it's a grim reality. The death van exists in China. Unlike a prison transport vehicle, this van itself is the execution chamber. It is reserved for criminals who have been sentenced to death by the courts. Inside the van, the prisoner meets their fate, quickly and secretly away from the public eye. The vehicle roams like a ghost, ensuring justice is carried out swiftly while leaving no trace behind. But friends, the Chinese death van is not just a vehicle for transporting prisoners. It is, in fact, an execution chamber on wheels. Yes, you heard that right. Inside the van itself, the condemned are put to death. Here's how it happens. At the back of the van lies a steel stretcher. 2 doctors remain seated inside, waiting. The prisoner is strapped tightly to the stretcher with belts, ensuring he cannot move even an inch. Once secured, the doctors inject a lethal poison into his veins. Within minutes, the prisoner writhes in agony, his body burning from the inside as the poison spreads. Slowly, he falls silent, lifeless. But the cruelty does not end there. His corpse is taken out, burned until nothing but ash remains. And only then is the family notified. The remains are handed over in silence, leaving no trace of the man who once lived. Across the world, most countries carry out executions in similar ways. Hanging, lethal injection, the firing squad. But if we turn our eyes toward Somalia, the story grows darker still. Here too, executions are common, but their methods are so cruel that even hardened hearts tremble at the thought. In Somalia, if a man commits murder or participates in a brutal crime, he is first arrested and caged like an animal. Once the court pronounces the death sentence, the prisoner is dragged before the public. Thousands gather in open squares, summoned to witness the punishment, and in front of this vast crowd, the execution begins. Sometimes the criminal is hanged. Sometimes he is tied to a wooden post and riddled with bullets. But the most terrifying of all is death by stoning. The condemned man is bound, unable to escape. while the crowd hurls rocks at him again and again until his body collapses. Death does not come quickly. It can take 1 or even 2 hours of unimaginable suffering before life finally leaves his body. Imagine that agony, the cries, the slow suffocation of pain, the weight of stones crushing him until silence falls. Of all punishments in Somalia, stoning remains the most feared, the most belt-shaking. And now, friends, let us move to Saudi Arabia, country notorious for its harsh interpretations of punishment. Here, every year, more than 200 people face the death penalty. Some crimes, like theft, can even result in a hand being cut off. But for murder, the penalty is death. The executions in Saudi Arabia are carried out publicly, in front of massive crowds. There are 3 main methods. The first, execution by gunfire, where the prisoner is lined up and shot. The second, stoning, similar to Somalia, where rocks are thrown until the condemned finally dies. And the third, the most infamous, public beheading. Yes, imagine standing in a square filled with people, and before your very eyes, a man is forced to his knees. A sharp blade flashes in the sunlight and, in a single moment, his head is severed from his body. The crowd gasps. Many recoil in fear. The message is unmistakable. This is the fate of those who dare to cross the law.
Now, while most countries reveal the exact timing of an execution, Japan follows a chillingly different path. When a prisoner in Japan is sentenced to death, he is not told when it will happen. Instead, he is locked away in a dark, silent cell, waiting. Days pass, months pass, even years, and yet, every morning, the prisoner wakes with the same thought: will this be the day they come for me? The uncertainty itself becomes a punishment, a psychological torture worse than death. And this, friends, is the haunting reality of Japan's death penalty. Prisoners wait in darkness for years, sometimes even decades, never knowing when the end will arrive. One chilling case is that of Iwa Hakamada, a man sentenced to death in 1969. For 45 long years, he remained locked behind bars in total isolation, never told when he might be executed. Then, in 2014, he was suddenly released because evidence proved he was actually innocent. 4.5 decades of his life had been stolen, consumed by the shadow of an execution that never came. This practice is not just about punishment, it is psychological torture. Imagine being sentenced to death, but never told when it will happen. Each day, the prisoner clings to the fragile hope of survival. Yet at any moment, guards could open the door to drag him toward the gallows. Sometimes, that hope is shattered when the truth comes too late. But in Japan, one thing is certain: the only method of execution is hanging. No injections, no firing squads, just the noose. Now let us turn to Pakistan. Here too, executions remain a legal punishment, most often by hanging. But what makes it terrifying is the process leading up to it. The condemned man is told of his fate, but he is made to wait, sometimes for hours, as guards prepare the gallows. The execution ground is silent, except for the sound of heavy footsteps. As officers move about, the prisoner, knowing his final moments are near, trembles in fear while being forced to wait in this atmosphere of dread. When the time comes, the prisoner is allowed one last meeting with his family. Papers are signed, final words are spoken. Then he is taken to the platform. A black cloth is tied over his face. A rope is placed tightly around his neck. At the order of the officials, the executioner pulls the lever. The wooden platform beneath the prisoner collapses, and his body drops suddenly into the noose. For some, the fall snaps the neck instantly. Death comes swiftly, but for others, the neck does not break. In those cases, the prisoner struggles violently, kicking, gasping, and twisting, like a fish caught on a line, until suffocation finally brings the end. The image is unforgettable, a final reminder of the brutality of capital punishment. And so, friends, we have reached the end of today's journey, an exploration of the world's most terrifying death sentences, from the firing squads of Somalia to the public beheadings of Saudi Arabia, from the mobile death vans of China to the psychological torment of Japan. These punishments reveal a chilling truth. Justice, in many parts of the world, is not only about death, it is about fear, about control, and about sending a message. Now the question is yours: are such punishments necessary to keep society in order, or do they cross the line into pure cruelty? Share your thoughts in the comments below.